All right. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Gators Online Show. I'm Keith Niebuhr. That is Zach Albaverdi. We're on campus at the University of Florida. Zach is inside the O-Dome. I'm outside of the swamp. And inside the swamp right now, Zach, and I hope everybody can hear me, inside the swamp, they're playing Won't Back Down. And Jon Sumrall is in the swamp right now, this big celebratory day. He's getting the whole works, and they are over there, I think, right, Zach, in the stadium as they play Won't Back Down. And, Zach, it was an interesting day. We all got to meet Jon Sumrall really for the first time. Steve Spurrier was there. Urban Meyer was there. Danny Werfel was there. DJ Lagway, a lot of players. Fireworks going off in the stadium right now. For a fan base, Zach, that was really hurt the last few days, is this what they needed?
It is, Keith. Obviously, for any new coach, objective number one when it comes to the fan base is to go out there and win the press conference. Obviously, Jon was walking into a tough situation, given all the Lane Kiffin stuff that's happened with this search. I thought he did a good job breaking the ice in his opening statement by making a Lane Kiffin joke. And then he just owned the Q&A portion of the presser. I thought he was a little nervous maybe early on. I think everybody was just anxious to see what he had to say. But once he started taking questions, Keith, he did a really great job and just said a lot of things that fans wanted to hear. And he said a lot of things that his predecessor did not say. And I think that was important.
The energy of Ron Zook, but with the confidence of Urban Meyer, I think that's kind of how I would describe him today. Look, it's just day one. It's just a presser. People were like, oh, what presser doesn't mean anything. This is predictable. If people look like Vince Lombardi on day one, you got to go out and win. But again, the Florida fan base, the last 72 hours have been kind of interesting, right? I mean, Lane Kiffin, you reported, wouldn't be the coach of the University of Florida. And then it was just kind of 3 days of anger out there, and Florida ended up hiring Jon Sumrall. So he needed to make a good first impression. Like, I don't think Urban Meyer or Steve Spurrier needed to make this kind of a first impression. This guy did, because of the firestorm that he's coming into. And Zach, he really accepted that and said, look, I've done great things at Troy and Tulane, but Troy and Tulane are not the University of Florida. He acknowledged the right people. He had Spurrier and Urban Meyer laughing it up. He spoke to the players, and we'll get into that later, but he spoke to the ones that were in the room and said, hey, I need to keep these guys. There's a lot of talent on this team. And then he said losing was not acceptable. And all coaches seem to say that, obviously, but he seemed to say it with more conviction than a lot of these guys. Hey, I win. I'm a winner. I'm a winner. That was kind of his theme today. It wasn't trust me. It was, I'm going to show you, but I'm telling you, I'm a winner. You can believe it or not, but I'm going to prove to you that I'm a winner. This guy is real confident. Would you agree with that?
I would, Keith. And I think one thing that Florida fans did not want to hear is give us time in preaching patience. One of the questions that I asked him was, what do you think is wrong with the Florida football program, and how fast do you think you can win big here? And his answer, I thought, fired up a lot of fans. And he did say that. Keith, you're right. Like he said, I expect to win tomorrow. We can go get the talent that we need to win right away. We've got guys on the team that we can win with right now. So the messaging was great, and I love the line that he had about, I was made for this job, I was built for this job, and he expects to win. So I think that a lot of Florida fans, when they look at this roster and they look at the type of talent that is on this team, they feel the same way if he can retain those players. And I think it was important to see the turnout. You had DJ Lagway in the room. You had Miles Graham in the room. You had several defensive linemen in the room. Vernell Brown III, Dallas Wilson. All these guys showed up to see his press conference, and I think that was a good sign.
Yeah, I mean, it remains to be seen. Look, I mean, we don't know. Again, this is day one. We get that. But you got to give the guy, at least tip your cap to him for saying, look, I get it, man. I understand why all these people commenting that are upset in here, I don't like the hire. He understands that. He gets that. Look, man, and again, you mentioned he even joked a couple times about Lane Kiffin. He knows that Lane Kiffin was the number one choice, and I don't think he's deterred by that whatsoever. This is a dream job. Obviously Billy Napier said the same thing, but that's where the issue is. People are going to say, oh, we've heard this before. Yes, but you also heard it from Urban Meyer. You heard it from other guys that did succeed. So just because you heard it from guys that didn't succeed, I don't know that you can draw any real parallels there that mean anything. So again, it was an important first step for him. He had to start winning people back one by one today. And quite frankly, when you look at the comments on our message boards at Gators Online, See, Metallica fan number one is just complaining. Like there's always still going to be those, and Metallica, that's fine. That's again, Jon Sumrall saying it's okay. He's accepting that it's okay to be upset. He knows he's got some work to do, Zach, to prove the people wrong. But again, he believes his systems are translate. He talked about how he understood, Zach, and I want to get you to mention this, how he understood that the offenses he's run at other schools aren't going to fly with Florida fans.
100%. That was one of the best comments that he made, was saying, hey, the brand of ball that I've played at my last two stops was played because I had to play to my players' strengths and the talent that I was able to acquire and have at those schools. Obviously, he expects at the University of Florida, he's going to have a lot better players and should have a much more explosive and dynamic offense. And I think it was good to hear that from him today. He said that in his opening statement, but for him to come out and be specific about what he expects offensively and how that's going to be different from what you've seen in the past from his teams, I think it's important for Florida fans to realize that if they watch him on in the conference championship game this Friday, like that offense that you see him running with Tulane is not what it's going to look like in the swamp. He's going to have a different coordinator, and he's going to have a different set of players to work with. I thought another good thing in talking about the hiring that he's going to be doing is that he's not going to be hiring his friends. And look, people can say that, and fans can criticize that and say you shouldn't hire your friends. But let's be honest, a lot of coaches do hire some of their closest confidants, and you got to be able to hire people that you can trust. So let's not pretend like there aren't going to be coaches out there that have friends on staff. I think it's striking the balance between having guys you can trust and not having too many yes men on the staff. And he was very clear that I'm not just going to go out and hire a bunch of my buddies. I'm going to go and get the best candidates out there for these positions, and that starts with OC.
People can't see, but there is a car back there. I don't know, but I believe that's new general manager Dave Caldwell. Am I getting the name? My names are getting all mixed up here, Zach. So Florida has a new GM in place. It was an interesting day because you had the new head coach. You had Steve Spurrier, Urban Meyer there. They brought all the big guns. Some of the donors were there. Some of the top donors were there. Danny Werfel was there. One interesting thing, Zach, I talked to Urban Meyer afterwards with some other reporters, and he said that one of the things that he connected with Jon Sumrall over was that, when he talked to him, one of the things that Jon Sumrall stressed to him was the need to get the weight program to the top. Well, if you want to connect with Urban Meyer, that's the best way to do it, to talk about the strength program and the value there, because those guys are definitely around all the time. They are around the players all the time. And when you look back at the 3 national championship teams that Florida had, strength and conditioning they were at the top of the game. I mean, there was no accident. So Steve Spurrier said it was a great hire. He's excited about it. There was a lot of excitement. Danny Werfel, Zach, sat in on the meetings during the interviews, and
which we first reported at Gators Online, by the way. Yeah. I'll add that in there.
Look again, but it is, and look to the critics out there, we get it, man. I mean, look, you're in the talking phase right now. You got to go out and show it. And I've got a loud motorcycle guy that keeps driving through here. But so Zach, let me ask you this: what you talked to Scott Strickland today? What were some of your takeaways from speaking with Florida Athletic Director?
Yeah, I can run through a few. First of all, they were very impressed by Jon early on in the process. It seems like it was clear that he was going to be their number 2 if they were not able to get Lane Kiffin. And he addressed that. He said, look, we had great conversations with Lane. We did the things that we needed to do from a resource standpoint and from a staffing standpoint that was going to make him happy. And he just said straight up that Lane chose to make another decision. He chose to go somewhere else. And at the end of the day, he respected that decision. He did push back, as did Danny Werfel, on criticism from fans that feel like Strickland dropped the ball or that they didn't want to hire Lane Kiffin. Both Strickland and Danny pushed back against that. And Scott said, look, I don't want to discuss other candidates, but I will address Lane because it was so public. Like, that they did want him. They did everything that they could to get him. And ultimately, he decided to go somewhere else. So when that was clear to them that that's the decision that he was going to make, they pivoted pretty quickly to Jon because, as Strickland said, they were worried about 5 SEC schools potentially hiring this guy. We know about Auburn, and it's been reported about Ole Miss as well. But there was certainly a concern if Lane didn't go to LSU that LSU would come after him. Arkansas was also reportedly after him. And then Scott said they were also worried about Kentucky, that if Kentucky was going to make a move on Mark Stoops, that they might come after Sumrall as well. So I do think that's something to be said about some of the other candidates that were out there. I don't know that the Clark Lees, Eli Drinkowitz's, Jed Fishes of the world, Brent Key were being as coveted and as pursued as Jon Sumrall. And I think that probably that factored into maybe why Florida went after him the way that it did.
There was some give and take in this press conference as well. A young reporter asked Jon Sumrall to recall the 2009 game that he played in the Swamp. And he said, "Hey, bro, I didn't play here in 2009." And it was really a funny few minutes, to be honest with you. Steve Spurrier was laughing his butt off. Urban Meyer was chuckling, a whole room. And, and he wasn't rude about it. And the young reporter was then able to ask a follow-up question and ended up great. It was a good teaching moment for that young man too, but it was just funny. It showed the lighter side of a press conference. This guy, it also showed that he's quick-witted and that he can roll with the punches. There was a lot of humor. There was a lot of self-deprecating humor. He didn't.
I want to address something in the comment section.
Sure.
Scott Strickland denied that there was any fallout with Turnkey or that Turnkey dropped Florida as a client. He did say that on the record. I've seen that in that comment section. Danny Werfel mentioned it as well. He said the Turnkey stuff is false. I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, they actually thanked Turnkey. Any other takeaways, Zach, from today? What do you think? I mean, look, we got a lot of comments that, we're there's still people that are upset, still don't think it's a good hire. And like I said, we get that. He's going to have to prove it now. But was there any other real takeaways? I thought the guy was impressive, but I wasn't surprised by that. But again, now he's got to go out and do it. But just your, I asked you your thoughts earlier on, but now thinking about it a little bit more, anything that he said surprised you? Anything that you thought really you would think maybe struck with fans that we haven't mentioned yet?
Yeah, I just liked his attitude toward recruiting and roster building and player retention, because to be honest now, like, that is going to be his priority. He's got to go hire a staff. I think he's got a good idea who his offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator could be, and we'll have a hot board coming at Gators Online this week. But like, priority number one is keeping the players on this team that are some of the best on the roster here in Gainesville. And he spoke directly to some of them today. I thought that it was important, again, that those guys showed up, and now he's got to get this recruiting class to be signed by Wednesday, kind of figure out where things are when the dust settles, maybe get some feedback from guys on the roster of who might be exploring the portal, who's committed to staying. And then, man, once that portal opens on January 2nd, they got to go balls to the wall and really kind of, I think that's the next step in getting the fans excited and enthused about where things are headed, is being able to close strong in this 2026 cycle.
Yeah, I mean, today means nothing if you don't hold on to the majority of your recruiting class. And quite frankly, South Carolina's working hard to poach a Florida running back commit. That could go either way. It may be trending away from Florida, but if he keeps the bulk of the talent that was headed to Gainesville, that's a good start. Then you retain the guys currently on the staff, I think, or on the roster. I think it was important that the Miles Grahams of the world, and Miles Graham's already been tweeting that he's all in on this guy, and you knew he would be because he's got the Gator blood running through his veins. DJ Lagway, Zach, I watched a lot during the Jon Sumrall press conference, and he was sitting at the edge of his seat. He was hanging on every word. He didn't look distracted. I think that's a good sign. You want people to, you want what the guy's saying to be resonating with them. You don't want them on their phones and looking around and all that.
Sure.
And they weren't. He said a lot of things that seemed to click. I mean, Zach, you and I both went to the University of Florida. We both grew up in this area. We know Gator fans. We know how upset and disappointed they've been. And quite frankly, I think he turned some people back in his corner today. But again, the work's just getting started. But I do think he understands that,
And the best part of the presser was when he started addressing Spurrier and Urban, and then Spurrier just in the middle of the presser goes, "Just win a lot of games," and the whole room bust out laughing. And that was some great color from Steve, but also some truth there in what he's saying. Dude's dead serious when he's telling him that he needs to win.
And I'll end with one little thing. I was talking to Steve Spurrier afterwards, and he said that, hey, one thing I want to do is I want to give credit to Scott Strickland for this. Spurrier loves this guy's energy. The guy being Jon Sumrall.
Speaking of energy, we got to see on Sunday the official press release from Florida when they announced Sumrall's hiring, and they had all these quotes in there from Urban and Danny Warfel and Steve Spurrier, some other players. It was one thing that stuck out to me from Steve. Look, guys, we all know Spurrier. You're not going to tell him what to say or tell him what to think. He's going to speak his mind. And, I thought that it was very telling at the end of his statement. If you go check out that press release, when he was talking about what he liked about Jon Sumrall, Spurrier said, I feel like he's going to bring a little more fire and energy to the team. And I thought that was kind of, a little shot at the predecessor there, because obviously that was one of the things that people criticized Billy for, was his sideline demeanor and things like that. So from an energy standpoint, definitely an upgrade there.
Yeah, and he didn't, we're going to go in a minute, but he didn't run away from any Lane Kiffin talk either. He went right to it, and he actually said something. I can't remember the exact quote, Zach, but it was about, hey, I'm going to coach my Tulane team in the playoff. Wasn't there something about that? I'm not quitting on these guys, all that stuff. And obviously we don't know what really transpired at Ole Miss, but yeah, I mean, he doesn't seem like he's afraid of this challenge. There was no aw shucks mentality. It was, I plan to kick some ass, man. That's what look, we don't know if he's going to do that, but look, sure. I mean, there's been a lot of guys come in here with big promises and it didn't work out. But again, on day one, what more could you have asked for? Whether you love this guy, whether you hated the choice, whether you were indifferent on the choice, his day one is a win, because it's a good PR day for the University of Florida, who has more bad PR days than just about anyone. Florida gets slammed. It's like, I mean, it's been a rough couple of weeks, right? The national media criticism, all that stuff. And so it was a good.
I mean, there was a story that came out from CBS Sports today that was just ripping Strickland.
Yeah. I mean, so Florida needed this, so they can thank Jon Sumrall for that. But like we said, he won the day, but now he's got to win some games. I mean, the hard part starts now. That's why, Zach, it's always incredible to me that these guys bomb in these introductory press conferences. That's the friggin' easy part.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to support you, but this guy gave people a reason to go with the want more than just heart. There were words and a guy that made you think that beyond the words, there might be some actions. That might be definitely going to be. But again, he's got to go out and win. That's the only way. Hang on, we got a loud car going. Amazing how many U.S. students drive loud cars, Zach. But anyway, all right, Zach, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, no, make sure you guys stay locked to Gators Online. We're going to have a lot of coverage coming from this. We had our Cyber Monday deal going. If you haven't taken advantage of that, get on board. You can get half off if you're joining our site. A ton of recruiting coverage this week for National Signing Day. A ton of coverage coming as Sumrall puts together his staff. And we're on to the next chapter, my man.
Some of these comments are great. Look, even the negative ones, we love all you guys. We appreciate your support. We do. I know I get rattled sometimes, but go to GatorsOnline.com, like Zach said, for more. For Zach Albaverdi, senior reporter of Gators Online, who just had one hell of a month, by the way, and me, Keith Niebuhr of Gators Online, thank you so much for stopping by. This was the Gators Online Show, Rapid Reaction Edition, as the Gators on Monday introduced Jon Sumrall as the new head coach at the University of Florida. Take care, everybody.